Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your source material, really dig into it, and pull out the most important bits of knowledge. We want to help you get truly well informed without you having to wade through everything yourself.
Hmm.
Today, we're diving into something that's, well, it's fundamental to our modern world, but it's often kind of overlooked. It's the relationship between artificial intelligence and energy use.
Right.
And just to kick us off, here's a little fact that might make you think twice next time you ask a question online. Did you know a single ChatGPT query takes about 10 times more electricity than a regular Google search?
Yeah, that's a really striking number.
Isn't it? It really shows that hidden energy costs behind the tech we use every single day.
It's this fascinating paradox, really. Like you said,
Yeah.
AI is changing, well, almost everything. How we talk to each other, the complex math behind self-driving cars, how critical infrastructure runs.
It's everywhere.
It really is. It's this tech revolution promising amazing things, across pretty much every industry you can imagine. But, and this is the crux of it, this amazing power comes with this huge and growing energy demand.
Unprecedented, you called it.
Truly unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally reshaping global electricity patterns. We're honestly just starting to understand the full scale of this challenge.
Right.
And it has these deep implications for our energy grids, for how fast technology can evolve, and maybe most importantly, for our sustainable future.
Okay, so what's our mission for this deep dive? You've given us some really compelling pieces from AI's energy dilemma, powering the future responsibly. Our goal is to really unpack these sources. We want to peel back the layers, look at the, frankly, staggering numbers behind AI's energy hunger.
Yeah, get into the figures.
Exactly. Then we'll dig into why AI uses so much energy. What are the mechanics behind it?
The fundamentals.
Right. From there, we'll look at where this infrastructure is actually being built, geographically, where is it concentrated?
And crucially, what's powering it?
Yes, what energy sources are actually feeding this beast? And then towards the end, we'll flip it around. We'll explore the exciting, almost counterintuitive idea that AI itself could actually help solve some of these energy problems.
It's a really interesting twist.
Yeah. And we'll look at what the future might hold for this critical link between AI and the world's power grid.
Exactly. We'll try to connect the dots for you. So starting from the small scale, like that single ChatGPT query you mentioned.
Which seems tiny, right?
Seems tiny, but it's part of this enormous whole.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll connect that all the way up to the big picture, global grid stability, even national energy security issues.
Okay.
Our goal isn't just for you to hear the facts and figures, but to really get a handle on what they mean for sustainability, for building new infrastructure, for investment, and really for the whole fabric of our tech-driven society.
It's a complex picture.
It is intricate, definitely. But it's absolutely crucial for anyone to understand, especially now, with how fast things are changing.
Okay, let's unpack this. The AI energy nexus. Unpacking the staggering demand. All right, let's start by facing the sheer scale of AI's energy appetite. It's this kind of hidden hunger that's quickly becoming very visible, and it's really challenging how we think about digital growth. Let's first just touch on how incredibly pervasive AI has become in our lives, and then we'll get into those surprising numbers that show just how much energy it needs.
Absolutely. I mean, the core idea here is that AI has, and this isn't an exaggeration, fundamentally changed modern society. It's touched almost every part of our work, how we communicate, our daily routines.
Yeah, think about it.
Just think about how deeply it's embedded now. You've got the personalized recommendations that shape what you watch or buy online.
Streaming, shopping, yeah.
Right. Then there are the incredibly complex algorithms behind advanced machine learning for autonomous vehicles. And they aren't just driving cars, they're changing logistics, transportation,
The whole supply chain.
the whole thing. And of course, you have the big language models, ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, others. They've brought sophisticated AI into everyday conversation. It's a tool used by millions, maybe billions worldwide now.
So it's not just in the research labs anymore.
Not at all. It's in your pocket. It's in your home. It's running behind the scenes in most digital services you interact with daily.
And the really critical point here, which our sources from AI's energy dilemma really hammer home, is that this huge tech revolution isn't free when it comes to energy.
Far from it.
Quite the opposite, actually. It comes with this unprecedented and increasingly obvious demand that's already putting a strain on our existing energy infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're only just starting to really grapple with that.
Yeah, it's that hidden cost of convenience, as you say. and it's rapidly moving to the forefront of global energy talks.
So let's get into those numbers. You said they're alarming.
They are, frankly, quite startling when you look at the projections. The International Energy Agency, the IEA, put out a comprehensive report on energy and AI. It really highlights how fast AI's energy demand is shooting up.
Faster than other sectors.
Much faster. It far outpaces almost every other sector. The report makes a stark projection. Global electricity demand just from data centers, which are the physical homes for AI.
Right, the server farms.
Exactly. Their demand is set to more than double between now, 2024, and 2030.
Double in just 6 years.
Double in 6 years. Think about that. The entire infrastructure supporting our digital lives, driven mostly by AI, will need twice the power it uses today. That's a massive increase in a very short time.
Wow. And to put that doubling into context, give it some real-world scale that the IEA goes further.
And they do. They estimate that by 2030, data centers could be consuming as much electricity as the entire nation of Japan uses today.
Japan, that's huge.
It's enormous. Japan's the third largest economy globally, a major industrial power, huge infrastructure, over 125 million people.
And just the data centers could match that.
Potentially, yes. The idea that the physical hardware running our digital services could rival Japan's total national electricity use within, 6 years? That's not just an eye-opener.
No, it's more than that.
It's like a massive warning sign. It signals a future where data center power needs could force fundamental shifts in national energy policy, maybe even global power dynamics.
Forcing tough choices, like
Yeah.
digital growth versus powering homes and factories.
Potentially, yes. That's a critical insight. And the speed of this growth is just as astounding. The IEA report points to a compound annual growth rate of about 15% per year for data centers.
15%.
15% year after year. And what makes that number really pop is that it's more than 4 times faster than the growth rate of total electricity consumption from all other sectors combined.
4 times faster.
Yeah. So while, manufacturing, homes, other industries, they're growing their energy needs at a fairly steady, manageable rate.
Right.
AI and data centers are on this exponential curve. It creates this huge gap that our current grid expansion plans might really struggle to keep up with.
It's not just growth, it's like runaway growth.
It feels like that. It's accelerated runaway demand.
And we can drill down even more, right,
Yeah.
into stats that really bring it home. You mentioned the ChatGPT query earlier.
Mhm.
One query uses about 10 times the electricity of a standard Google search. Now, one search feels like nothing,
Trivial, yeah.
but think about the volume. Google handles, over 8.5 billion searches every single day?
Billions.
So if even a small fraction of those become more AI-heavy queries, or if AI assistants get even more integrated into our lives, that tiny difference per query suddenly scales up into this absolutely massive collective demand.
It's like the butterfly effect, but for kilowatts, as you said. Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not just the everyday use, the queries, the training of these huge AI models, the process where they actually learn, that's astronomically energy intensive.
Right, that foundational step.
Exactly. Take GPT-3, for example. Just training that one model needed an estimated 12,287 megawatt hours of electricity.
Okay, translate that for me. 1,287 megawatt hours is?
That's enough electricity to power about 120 average U.S. homes for an entire year.
For a whole year, just to train one AI model.
One version of one prominent model. And remember, that doesn't even count the energy it uses every day when millions of people interact with it.
Or the training for GPT-4 or other models.
Exactly. Or all the other large AI models constantly being developed by Google, Meta, startups, everyone. It's this huge upfront energy cost just to get the AI revolution started model by model.
And the projections, as you said, just keep going up. Our sources suggest by 2030, AI could be responsible for up to 10% of global electricity consumption if these trends continue.
10% globally.
That jump from maybe 1.5% now in 2024 to potentially 10% in just 6 years. That shift really highlights the enormous scale of change we're discussing.
It's massive.
To think that one relatively new tech sector could command such a big slice of the world's power so quickly, it's really a testament to how deeply it's being integrated and just how much raw computing power it needs.
Yeah, it implies fundamental changes in how we build and manage our power grids.
And it's not just the big AI models hogging the power. The infrastructure itself, the average data center, is an energy giant.
Oh, absolutely. An average data center uses enough electricity to power 180,000 homes annually.
180,000 homes. For one data center.
for an average one. That's why people are starting to call them digital cities. Their power needs are genuinely comparable to a small metropolis, but it's all for digital output.
Wow.
These are huge custom-built structures. They're fundamentally changing the energy footprint of entire regions, demanding new power lines, new substations, and just a constant rock-solid supply of electricity.
What's really interesting about this trend, and maybe a bit concerning, is the underlying economics. The sources mention that the cost of GPUs, the graphics processors that do most of the AI work, that cost is actually going down.
Right, the cost per unit of compute is decreasing.
But at the same time, the amount of AI training using these GPUs is skyrocketing.
Exactly. That combination is what's fueling this exponential growth.
Yeah.
Cheaper access to really powerful computing means more companies, more researchers can do more training, more experimentation.
It leads to higher overall energy use.
Precisely. Even if individual chips get a bit more efficient, the sheer increase in usage swamps those gains. It's a classic example of the Jevons paradox.
Where efficiency leads to more consumption.
Yes. Increased efficiency lowers the effective cost, which boosts demand, often negating or even reversing the initial energy savings on a system-wide level. The easier and cheaper it is, the more we use it.
So putting the data center consumption in context again,
Yeah.
you said about 1.5% of global electricity in 2024.
Roughly, yes. That 1.5% might sound modest initially, but the trajectory is what's remarkable. By 2030, these same data centers are projected to use around 945 terawatt hours annually,
945 TWH.
which will represent about 3% of global electricity demand. So that percentage doubles, or maybe triples, depending on the baseline.
From 1.5 to 3. Yeah, doubling.
But that doubling in percentage terms means a massive absolute increase in energy demand in just 6 years. And the driver, without a doubt, is the computational intensity of AI. It just needs more processing power per task compared to older computing jobs.
And digging even deeper within data centers, it's the AI servers specifically that are the real power hogs, right? They're the engines driving this demand.
That's exactly right. Research suggests AI servers already accounted for 24% of all server electricity demand and about 15% of the total data center energy demand back in 2024.
Even though they're just a fraction of the servers.
Yes, because they require immense computational power for machine learning, language processing, all the advanced AI stuff.
And that single training session example again.
A single training run for a big language model can use as much electricity as hundreds of homes do in a year. That level of intensity really underlines why AI is the main and increasingly dominant driver of data center energy growth.
Even compared to all the other things data centers do.
Exactly. It's like comparing the energy use of one big industrial furnace to all the light bulbs in the same factory you're building. The furnace is where the real energy demand lies. 2. Demystifying AI's energy appetite. The why behind the what's.
Okay, so we've nailed down the what, the staggering numbers, the sheer scale of AI's energy footprint. Now, to really get a handle on this challenge, we need to understand why. Why is this technology inherently so power hungry? Let's pull back the curtain on the mechanics driving this.
Right. To understand that, you have to look at the basic mechanics of modern AI, especially the deep learning systems behind models like ChatGPT. At its core, AI uses these massive structures called neural networks.
Okay, neural networks.
They're complex, layered computational systems designed to mimic, in a very abstract and simplified way, how neurons in our brains process information and learn.
Like a simulated brain, sort of.
In a very basic sense, yes. These networks are made up of millions or even billions of interconnected points called parameters. Think of parameters as the adjustable knobs or dials on a hugely complex machine.
Okay.
The AI model tunes these parameters during its learning phase. And this tuning process, adjusting potentially billions of knobs, requires immense computational effort because each one has to be tweaked repeatedly using enormous amounts of data.
And when you say billions of parameters, you really mean billions, right? GPT-4, for instance.
Yes, GPT-4 is estimated to have something like 1.76 trillion parameters.
Trillion, with a T.
With a T. Think about that number. Every single one of those 1.76 trillion parameters needs computational processing to learn, adapt, store information during the training phase.
That's just hard to even imagine.
It is. It's a level of complexity that doesn't just demand huge processing power. It requires constant, iterative math, trillions upon trillions of calculations on an almost unimaginable scale. It really pushes the limits of our current hardware.
And it highlights a pretty stark efficiency gap, doesn't it, compared to, say, The human brain.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite humbling, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The human brain, with its incredible complexity and parallel processing power, much of which we still don't fully understand, runs on about 20 watts.
20 watts, like a dim light bulb.
Exactly. About the same as a low wattage light bulb.
Today's AI systems performing complex cognitive tasks are nowhere near that level of energy efficiency.
Not even close.
Not even in the same ballpark. That comparison really puts the current energy challenge into perspective. It shows how far we still need to go to create truly energy-efficient artificial intelligence, despite how powerful it already is.
The brain is the ultimate low-power supercomputer.
It really is. Okay, so if the neural networks with their trillions of parameters are the brain, what's the engine doing all the heavy lifting, all that intense computation?
That would be the specialized hardware, the compute engine. Primarily, we're talking about graphics processing units, GPUs, or Google's custom chips, tensor processing units, TPUs.
Okay, GPUs and TPUs.
The training process for these AI models is incredibly computationally intensive. It involves feeding vast data sets through the neural network, not just once, but millions, maybe billions of times.
Over and over again.
Over and over.
Mm-hmm.
With each pass, the system makes tiny adjustments to those parameters. That's a process called backpropagation. It's essentially continuous trial and error, trying to improve the model's accuracy and performance.
And that takes serious horsepower.
Immense horsepower. This repetitive, highly parallel number crunching literally trillions of multiplications and additions is done by those GPUs and TPUs. They're designed specifically for this kind of work, doing many calculations at the same time.
And these specialized chips, they're famously power hungry, right?
Notoriously so.
Yeah.
A single high-end GPU used in AI training can easily consume 300 to 400 watts continuously.
300, 400 watts in like a big fridge running nonstop.
Pretty much, yeah. Similar power draw to a large energy-guzzling refrigerator running 24/7. Now scale it up to a large data center.
Okay, yeah.
Modern hyperscale data centers can house tens of thousands of servers, maybe 50,000 or even more.
50,000.
And each of those servers often contains not just one, but multiple GPUs, maybe 4, maybe 8.
So you multiply 50,000 servers by, say, 4 or 8 GPUs each times 300, 400 watts.
Exactly. You can quickly see how the cumulative power draw from a facility like that becomes truly mind-boggling. Thousands of these energy-hungry chips running flat out, 247 just training and running AI models.
Okay, so that's the training. What about after the model is trained, the inference part?
Right, inference. That's using the trained model to actually do something, make predictions, generate text, answer questions based on new input.
Like when I asked ChatGPT a question.
Exactly. Now, inference is generally less energy-intensive per operation than the initial training, but the sheer scale of inference makes it a huge energy drain overall.
Billions of times a day.
Billions upon billions of inference operations happen every single day globally. Every ChatGPT question, every Google search using AI enhancements, every voice assistant command on your phone or smart speaker.
Even streaming recommendations.
Even streaming recommendations, facial recognition, fraud detection, all trigger multiple AI inference operations in data centers somewhere in the world.
So the cumulative effect.
The cumulative effect of these billions of tiny computations running constantly across the globe adds up to a really substantial and continuous energy demand.
Okay, so beyond the actual compute, the training and inference, there's also this significant hidden power drain in data centers that maybe people don't think about.
That's a really critical point.
Yeah.
Data centers have major energy overheads for two main reasons: reliability and temperature control.
Reliability first. What does that mean in terms of energy?
It means redundancy. Data centers are built for near-perfect uptime. They operate with multiple layers of backup systems, power supplies, network connections, servers often using structures called N+1 or 2N redundancy.
So everything has a backup.
Or multiple backups, yeah, to ensure uninterrupted service, 24/7 reliability. If one component or power line fails, identical backups take over instantly, seamlessly.
Which is essential, obviously.
Absolutely essential. Downtime can cost tech companies millions per minute, but this constant, always-ready state with redundant systems often running in parallel, even if they're not actively needed at that moment.
Means they're drawing power even when idle.
Exactly. It's a necessary but often overlooked energy overhead just to guarantee the seamless service we've all come to expect from AI in the cloud.
Okay, and the second big overhead, cooling. That must be massive, given how hot these chips get.
Massive is the right word. Cooling systems are absolutely essential and consume a huge chunk of a data center's total energy. These powerful chips generate enormous amounts of heat when running full tilt.
How hot are we talking?
Without proper cooling, server temperatures can easily hit 80 degrees Celsius. That's 176 Fahrenheit. hot enough to cause malfunctions, crashes, even permanent hardware damage.
So you need serious cooling.
Serious, constant cooling. And because of that, these cooling systems can account for a substantial 30% to 50% of the total energy used by a data center. Sometimes even up to 40% of the entire power bill is just for cooling.
Wow, nearly half in some cases.
It can be. Now, to tackle this, new solutions are being developed. Things like advanced liquid immersion cooling.
Submerging the servers in liquid.
Exactly, and a special non-conductive fluid. It's much better at heat transfer than air. And also more sophisticated AI-driven air conditioning systems that optimize cooling based on real-time needs.
Using AI to cool the AI.
Precisely. These innovations are aimed squarely at reducing this crucial but very energy-intensive part of running a data center. 3. The global grid under pressure, where AI lives and feeds.
Okay, so we know AI is incredibly power hungry, and we understand the why behind it now. Let's zoom out to the global view. Where is all this infrastructure actually being built? Where is it concentrated? And what kind of pressure is it putting on our electrical grids, both locally and regionally?
Right, the geography of AI power. The core idea is that AI infrastructure is very highly concentrated geographically. And this isn't random.
No. What drives the location?
It's a mix of factors. The presence of the big tech companies, access to huge amounts of capital, technical expertise, and critically, access to reliable and often relatively cheap energy.
And who's leading the pack?
The United States dominates the landscape right now. The U.S. accounts for a whopping 45% of global data center electricity consumption as of 2024.
Nearly half the world's total. Wow.
Yeah, it's driven primarily by those tech giants, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Apple, others. They all run these massive hyperscale cloud infrastructures that underpin their own AI services and host countless others.
They got there first, basically.
They were early movers, built a huge capacity, and the infrastructure has just snowballed from there.
So the U.S. is clearly number one. Who else are the major players here, and what does this concentration mean?
China is the second largest consumer, representing about 25% of global data center electricity use. Europe collectively accounts for around 15%.
Okay. U.S., China, Europe.
Right. And this heavy geographic concentration has really significant implications for regional energy grids and for policy planning. It means certain areas, specific states in the U.S. or certain countries in Europe are bearing a disproportionate share of this new, rapidly growing energy demand.
You can see how that could cause problems.
Absolutely. Just look at the U.S. alone. The electricity demand just for data centers is projected to jump by about 400 terawatt hours between 2024 and 2030.
400 TWh. Put that in perspective again.
400 TWh is roughly like adding the entire current electricity consumption of a country like Australia or Italy onto the U.S. grid.
In just 6 years?
In just 6 years. That represents a compound annual growth rate of about 23% just for data centers in the U.S. That's incredibly rapid growth that energy planners are scrambling to deal with.
And beyond those big national numbers, you see very specific regional impacts, right? Local grids feeling the strain. It's not just an abstract issue.
Not at all. It's very concrete. The U.S. hosts over 2,700 data centers, more than any other country. And what's really challenging is that a single one of these hyperscale data centers, the kind that big tech companies build, can consume anywhere from 50 to 100 megawatts of power continuously.
50 to 100 megawatts. Equivalent to what?
Equivalent to the power needs of a small city, maybe 50,000 to 100,000 residents.
For one data center?
For one data center. Now, imagine several of these massive facilities choosing to locate in the same relatively small region, which is exactly what's happening in popular spots.
Like Ireland. I heard that's a prime example. Their grid must be under incredible stress.
Ireland is a dramatic case, yes. Despite its relatively small size and population, data centers now consume a staggering 18% of the country's total electricity.
18%, just for data center.
18%. It's become such an acute issue there that the national grid operator actually had to put limits on new data center connections in some areas, like Dublin, to prioritize homes and essential services.
Wow, so it's not just big countries feeling it.
No, it's about localized intensity. And even more dramatically, look at Virginia in the U.S., Data Center Alley, this dense cluster mainly in Loudoun County.
Right, near D.C.
That area alone now uses more electricity than entire countries like Greece or Chile.
More than Greece, just that one county's data centers.
Correct. These specific examples really hammer home the very real, very localized challenges that this data center boom poses to grid capacity, to reliability, and maybe even to the economic development of other potential industries needing power.
These aren't abstract future problems.
No, they are tangible impacts happening right now on regional power supplies. It raises tough questions about energy equity, local resource allocation. Who gets the power?
And this rapid growth, it seems like it's creating serious bottlenecks too. Like the grid infrastructure itself just can't be built fast enough.
That's a critical bottleneck, definitely. And it's becoming a major headache for both the tech companies wanting to expand and the utility providers trying to keep up.
The grid can't connect them fast enough.
In many places, no.
Eh.
The pace of AI infrastructure growth is simply outstripping the grid's ability to connect these massive new facilities quickly and reliably. The IEA projects that about 20% of planned data centers worldwide could face significant delays just getting connected to the grid because of these infrastructure limitations.
20% delayed, that's huge.
It is. And it's not just a theoretical issue, it's causing real project delays, costing companies potentially billions in postponed operations, getting grid connection approval alone.
Just the approval.
Yeah, just the approval process for a large data center can take 18 to 24 months on average before you even start construction.
Wow. Why so long?
Because it often requires building entirely new substations, upgrading major transmission lines, navigating complex environmental reviews and regulatory hurdles. It's a massive undertaking to plug in a facility that needs as much power as a city.
And I heard there's another layer to this power quality. AI needs super reliable power, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That adds another profound level of complexity. The power quality requirements for sophisticated AI infrastructure are incredibly strict, maybe 10 times stricter than for typical industrial uses.
10 times stricter. What does that mean practically?
It means AI systems aren't just sensitive to blackouts. They're incredibly sensitive to even tiny fluctuations in voltage, slight variations in frequency, or harmonic distortions in the power supply.
Things you wouldn't even notice.
Things the human eye wouldn't see, maybe a tiny flicker. But that momentary dip or surge can disrupt complex AI calculations, cause errors, crash systems, even damage extremely expensive hardware.
So the grid has to be extra stable for them.
Exactly. For the grid, this demands much more sophisticated power conditioning equipment, advanced grid stabilizers, and often necessitates power sources that provide incredibly stable, consistent output, like nuclear power, or maybe very stable combined cycle gas turbines. They need power that maintains precise voltage and frequency, second by second.
Which adds cost and complexity.
Significantly. Upgrading the electrical infrastructure just to support this AI-driven growth could cost somewhere between $200 billion and $400 billion globally by 2030.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B. And remember those grid connection delays we talked about? They're impacting a huge chunk of planned data centers, representing potentially $50 billion in delayed investments worldwide.
So it's a real physical and financial bottleneck.
Absolutely. It highlights this intricate, very real-world tug-of-war between the speed of AI growth and the capacity, stability, and sheer cost of upgrading our foundational energy systems. It needs urgent, coordinated planning. 4V, the energy mix. Powering AI clean or dirty.
Okay, so with all this incredible escalating demand for power, what's actually fueling these digital cities and the whole AI revolution? Are we managing to power it with clean, green energy, or are we still mostly relying on, the old guard fossil fuels?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, or maybe trillion-dollar question. The core idea here is that despite really significant commitments from the major tech players to switch to renewables,
Which you hear a lot about.
you do. But the reality on the ground is that fossil fuels still provide a significant portion of the power for the AI revolution. And this really just mirrors the bigger picture of the global energy landscape.
Where fossil fuels are still dominant overall.
Exactly. Globally, about 60% of all electricity still comes from fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, oil. The simple fact is, this huge new demand from AI has to be met by something. And often the most readily available dispatchable power sources are still fossil fuel-based power plants.
And does that vary much by region, for data centers specifically?
Oh, definitely. There are huge regional differences based on the local grid mix. The stats are pretty clear. Data centers in China, for instance, the second biggest consumer.
Right, 25%.
They rely on coal for about 57% of their electricity needs. That's largely because China's grid is still heavily reliant on coal power overall.
Okay. And the U.S., the biggest consumer.
In the United States, which uses almost half the world's data center power, natural gas is the big player. It accounts for roughly 40% of data center electricity consumption, again reflecting the U.S. grid's heavy use of natural gas.
Which is cleaner than coal, but still a fossil fuel.
Still a fossil fuel, still emits CO2. And even with all the big tech companies setting ambitious 100% renewable goals, the global average is still quite low. Only about 28% of global data center electricity currently comes directly from renewable sources.
Only 28%.
Globally, yes, which means that coal-fired power plants and gas plants are still contributing substantially, especially in places where AI growth is just happening faster than new renewable projects can be built and connected to the grid.
The AI demand is outpacing the green energy supply.
In many key regions, yes, the pace is just incredibly fast.
And this ongoing reliance on fossil fuels, even if it's just for part of the supply, has major carbon implications, right? Especially given how fast AI is growing.
Absolutely. This is a really critical point that sometimes gets lost in the discussion about renewable energy certificates or RECs and power purchase agreements, PPAs.
Which companies use to claim they're running on renewables?
Exactly. And those are commendable, important tools for driving investment in renewables. But here's the tricky part. The additional electricity needed to scale up AI, that marginal demand, often has to be met by whatever power plants are available on the grid at that specific moment.
So if the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing,
That during those peak demand times or when renewables aren't producing, that extra power frequently comes from ramping up a natural gas plant, or sometimes even a coal plant if it's still part of the grid mix.
so even if a data center buys green certificates,
Right. Even if they financially offset their emissions on paper, the actual physical electrons powering their servers at certain times might still be coming from a fossil fuel source.
that's a crucial distinction.
It is. And the challenge is made worse because AI workloads usually need that consistent 247 power with almost zero downtime.
They can't just shut off when the wind stops.
Exactly. Unlike some factories that can adjust schedules, AI training or critical inference tasks generally need continuous high-quality power. This makes grid reliability absolutely paramount,
Which often favors.
which often favors those dispatchable baseload power sources that can run anytime traditionally. That's meant fossil fuels or nuclear.
Okay, that paints a pretty challenging picture. It reveals a complex reality under the green claims, but there has to be a strong push towards renewables, right? What about solar, wind, even nuclear? Are they actually stepping up to meet this demand?
Oh, absolutely. There is a significant and rapidly growing push. The promise of renewables is definitely central to the long-term strategy for powering AI responsibly. Solar, wind, and yes, nuclear all offer vital pathways to seriously cut the carbon footprint of AI. And potentially, they offer long-term cost savings compared to volatile fossil fuel prices.
Well, let's break those down. Solar first. Its cost has just plummeted, hasn't it?
It's been a truly stunning transformation. Solar power costs have dropped by something like 89% since 2010.
89%.
89%. That makes it the cheapest source of new electricity generation in many parts of the world today. This economic advantage, plus the environmental pressure, is a massive driver.
And the big tech companies are investing heavily.
Hugely. Many have pledged to power their global operations with 100% renewable energy by certain dates. Google, for instance, has contracted for over 5 gigawatts of renewable capacity worldwide.
5 gigawatts, that's enough to power?
Enough to power about 3.75 million average homes. It's a huge amount. Microsoft is aiming to be carbon negative by 2030.
Negative. Removing more than they emit.
Exactly. And they've committed $1 billion to a climate innovation fund to help develop carbon reduction tech. And Amazon is currently the world's single largest corporate buyer of renewable energy. They've contracted for 15.7 gigawatts of renewable capacity globally.
15.7 gigawatts.
These massive corporate commitments are driving huge investments in large-scale solar farms, wind farms, pushing the whole energy transition forward significantly.
Okay, so solar is booming. What about wind energy? Equally important.
Definitely. Wind, both onshore and increasingly offshore, is another crucial piece of the renewable puzzle, especially for large-scale power. But it shares that challenge with solar intermittency.
Right. It only generates power when the wind blows.
Which is obviously a challenge for data centers needing constant 247 power. But this challenge is being tackled head-on, primarily through advances in energy storage. Large-scale battery systems are becoming much more cost-effective. They're increasingly being paired with wind farms to store excess energy generated during windy periods and release it when the wind dies down.
Smoothing out the supply.
Exactly. Plus, sophisticated grid management systems, often using AI itself, are getting better at balancing these variable sources. But just for context, wind typically has a capacity factor of around 35%.
Meaning it generates power about 35% of the time.
On average, yes. Compare that to nuclear power, which has a capacity factor over 90%. That difference really highlights why you need a diverse mix of energy sources.
Which brings us neatly to nuclear. That seems like a really good fit for that consistent baseload power data centers need. It's carbon-free and super reliable.
Nuclear energy is increasingly seen as perhaps the most promising solution for providing that consistent, carbon-free, high-quality electricity that AI infrastructure craves.
Why high quality?
Because nuclear plants provide very stable voltage and frequency, which, as we discussed, is critical for sensitive AI hardware. Plus, they deliver 247 carbon-free electricity with that incredibly high capacity factor over 90%.
Way higher than solar or wind.
Significantly higher. Solar is typically around 25%, wind 35%. That unmatched reliability makes nuclear extremely attractive for data centers that simply cannot tolerate interruptions regardless of weather.
Are tech companies actually looking at nuclear now?
They are, increasingly so. Several major tech companies are actively exploring partnerships with existing nuclear power providers. Some are even investing directly in next-generation nuclear technologies,
Like what?
particularly small modular reactors, or SMRs.
SMRs, what are those?
They're designed to be much smaller, inherently safer, potentially cheaper, and quicker to build than traditional massive nuclear plants. The idea is you could potentially locate them closer to where the power is needed, like a large data center campus.
So dedicated nuclear power for data centers.
That's definitely being explored. Their reliability and carbon-free output make SMRs a very appealing option for these power-hungry AI facilities looking for secure, long-term, sustainable energy.
And all of this, the rise of solar, wind, the potential of nuclear must be influencing where these massive data centers get built, right? Creating a sort of new energy geography.
Precisely. The geography of energy resources is becoming a huge factor in site selection. Where do you have abundant, affordable, renewable potential? Where is the grid reliable and capable of handling large loads?
So regions with lots of sun or wind or stable grids.
Exactly. Regions with great solar potential, strong wind corridors, or access to reliable nuclear power are becoming magnets for AI infrastructure investment.
Which could shift tech hubs.
It could. It creates new economic opportunities in areas that maybe weren't traditional tech centers. Companies are strategically co-locating these energy-hungry facilities with clean, reliable, and potentially cheaper power sources. It's a strategic shift reshaping industrial landscapes. The paradox of progress. AI as both problem and solution.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, almost paradoxical. We've spent all this time talking about AI's massive growing energy appetite.
Which is undeniable.
But your sources also strongly suggest that AI itself could actually hold the key to solving some of these very energy challenges. It's like the technology causing the problem might also be the solution.
Absolutely. This dual nature is one of the most fascinating and, frankly, hopeful aspects of this whole story. AI is, without question, a major energy consumer, growing incredibly fast.
We've established that.
But at the same time, it's also a uniquely powerful tool for optimizing energy systems, for boosting efficiency, and actually reducing energy consumption across the entire economy.
From factories to cities?
From factories to cities, even within the data centers themselves. It's a testament to the transformative capability of the technology. It offers a path to mitigate the problem it's creating.
So how does AI work as an energy optimizer in the real world? Give us some concrete examples beyond just theory.
Okay, on the demand side, AI enables much smarter, more dynamic energy management in lots of sectors, leading to real savings. Take buildings, for example, commercial buildings, large residential complexes.
Okay.
AI-optimized building management systems can cut overall energy use by 10% to 20%.
10 to 20%. How?
They use machine learning algorithms to constantly analyze real-time data, things like occupancy sensors, is anyone in the room, external weather forecasts, internal temperature sensors, humidity levels.
It's all fed into the AI.
Right. The AI then dynamically optimizes the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the HVAC systems. It can predict when to pre-cool or preheat spaces efficiently or intelligently shut down systems in empty zones.
Much smarter than just running on a fixed timer.
Way smarter. It eliminates huge amounts of energy waste that traditional static schedules just can't avoid.
And within the data centers themselves, can AI help reduce its own footprint, like become self-optimizing?
Absolutely. It's a very direct and impactful application, almost like a digital system healing itself. Google's DeepMind division famously used AI algorithms to cut the cooling energy costs in their own huge data centers by an impressive 40%.
40% just on cooling. That's massive.
It is, considering cooling is such a big part of the energy bill. The AI analyzed real-time temperature data, server loads, even the types of jobs running on the servers, plus weather forecasts.
And figured out the most efficient cooling strategy.
Exactly. It predicted the optimal way to run everything, fan speeds, chiller settings, airflow management, leading to substantial ongoing energy savings. It's not a one-time fix. It's a continuous optimization loop.
Okay, buildings, data centers. What about manufacturing?
In manufacturing, AI optimization can trim energy usage by maybe 8 to 15%, often while maintaining or even increasing production levels.
How does it do that?
By optimizing production schedules to minimize machine idle time, by fine-tuning the energy settings of individual machines based on the specific task, and by coordinating workflows more efficiently.
And predictive maintenance, I heard that helps too.
Yes, predictive maintenance powered by AI can cut industrial energy waste by maybe 12% to 18%.
How? By preventing breakdowns.
Essentially, yes. By analyzing sensor data, AI can predict when a piece of equipment is likely to fail before it actually breaks down. This allows companies to schedule maintenance precisely when needed.
So machines run more efficiently.
Right. It prevents machines from running inefficiently when they're close to failure, reduces unexpected downtime, and avoids the energy losses associated with malfunctioning equipment.
That's incredibly powerful for individual businesses and big industry. What about the really big picture? The entire electrical grid. Can AI really transform how we manage electricity nationwide?
This is where AI's potential is truly revolutionary for infrastructure. Smart grid technologies powered by AI are fundamentally changing how electricity is generated, moved around, and used. Well, AI can predict energy demand with much greater accuracy than older methods. This helps utility companies optimize power generation, reducing the need to fire up inefficient and expensive peaker plants that only run during high-demand spikes.
Saving fuel and money.
Exactly. And crucially, AI also helps integrate those intermittent renewable sources, solar and wind, much more effectively into the grid.
How does it help with intermittency?
AI algorithms can analyze weather patterns and historical data to forecast renewable energy output much more accurately. This allows grid operators to anticipate fluctuations and balance the grid more smoothly.
So they know when solar will drop off or wind will pick up.
With much better precision, yes. Plus, AI enables the grid to respond to disruptions like a sudden surge in demand, an equipment failure, even a cyber attack attempt much faster and more intelligently than humans could alone.
Making the grid more resilient.
More resilient and more efficient. In fact, studies suggest AI-powered grid management can improve the integration of renewables by up to 30%.
30% improvement. That means we can add more solar and wind.
Yes, it means more renewable energy can be safely and reliably incorporated into the grid without compromising stability. That's huge for accelerating the transition to clean energy.
You mentioned AI coordinating things too, like solar panels on houses.
Precisely. AI algorithms can coordinate the operation of thousands, even millions, of distributed energy resources spread across the grid.
Like what kind of resources?
Rooftop solar panels on homes and businesses, batteries in homes or at substations, electric vehicle chargers, smart thermostats, individual wind turbines.
All talking to each other.
Coordinated by AI, it's like an incredibly sophisticated conductor for the entire energy orchestra, ensuring all these distributed pieces work together harmoniously to optimize the overall grid performance, reliability, and cost.
That's amazing. What about other areas, like transportation?
AI is key there too. It's enabling more efficient electric vehicles, optimizing charging schedules. It's behind the route optimization algorithms used by ride-sharing and delivery companies.
Finding the fastest, most fuel-efficient routes?
Exactly. Navigating traffic in real time to cut fuel consumption. And AI-powered traffic management systems in cities, analyzing traffic flow, dynamically adjusting traffic light timings.
Can actually reduce fuel use.
Studies suggest they can reduce urban fuel consumption by 15% to 25% just by reducing congestion and smoothing traffic flow. Less stop-and-go driving.
And even within the traditional energy sector itself, oil and gas.
Yes, AI is being used there too, to optimize drilling operations, make them more efficient, predict equipment failures to reduce downtime and waste.
So making fossil fuel extraction more efficient?
It can, yes. And on the renewable side, operators use AI, as we said, to predict wind and solar output for better grid integration. Utility companies use AI across the board, predicting transformer failures, optimizing power flow to minimize energy lost in transmission lines, managing demand response programs where customers get incentives to reduce usage during peak times.
So AI is becoming this pervasive tool for efficiency across the whole energy chain.
Exactly. From the point of generation all the way to the final point of consumption, AI is emerging as a critical tool for smarter management and driving efficiency gains. 6. Navigating the future. Innovations, challenges, and collaboration.
Okay, so we've covered the problem, the why, and fascinatingly, how AI itself can be part of the solution. Let's shift our gaze forward now. What exciting innovations are coming down the pipe to make AI itself more energy efficient? And how are our broader energy systems evolving to cope with this huge ongoing demand?
Right. Looking ahead, the relationship between AI and energy is definitely going to keep evolving incredibly quickly as both technologies race forward. And there is significant, very focused research happening right now dedicated to making AI fundamentally more energy efficient.
At the chip level.
At the chip level, at the algorithm level, across the board, this is a really crucial area of innovation. For instance, researchers are working hard on next-generation AI chips designed with energy efficiency as a primary goal, not just raw speed.
How much more efficient could they be?
Well, some researchers are optimistic they could eventually be, say, 100 times more energy efficient than the current GPUs we rely on.
100 times. That would be a game changer.
It would be absolutely monumental if achieved at scale. This involves things like specialized analog AI chips, even exploring optical computing, which uses light instead of electricity for certain types of calculations.
And I've heard talk about quantum computing in this context too. Is that realistic for AI energy efficiency?
Quantum computing for AI.
Yeah.
Well, it's still very much an emerging frontier, mostly experimental right now.
Yeah.
It's not likely to be a universal solution for all AI tasks.
But for specific problems.
But for certain extremely complex, computationally heavy tasks that are relevant to AI, like optimizing the structure of neural networks themselves or simulating very complex molecular interactions for drug discovery, AI quantum computing could, theoretically, slash the energy requirements by maybe 99% compared to classical computers.
99% reduction. Wow.
For those specific suitable tasks, yes. Then there are neuromorphic chips.
Neuromorphic.
Yeah.
Mimicking the brain.
Exactly. These chips are designed from the ground up to mimic the way biological brains process information, which is inherently very energy efficient. They move away from the traditional computer architecture where processing and memory are separate.
How much energy could they save?
They hold the promise of consuming maybe 1,000 times less energy than traditional processors for certain AI tasks. It's a radical rethinking of computer architecture specifically for AI, potentially much closer to that 20-watt brain efficiency we talked about.
Okay, so exciting things happening with the chips. What about the data centers themselves, the physical infrastructure, innovations there?
Absolutely. Advanced cooling technologies are a huge focus. We mentioned immersion cooling.
Dunking the servers in liquid.
Right. That alone could cut a data center's energy use by as much as 45% compared to just blasting them with cold air. Liquids are just much better at pulling heat away.
Makes sense. Anything else on the infrastructure side?
Another really critical innovation is the push towards edge computing.
Edge computing, meaning?
Meaning processing data closer to where it's generated at the edge of the network. So instead of sending rivers of data from sensors or devices all the way back to a massive central data center for processing.
You process it locally?
You process more of it locally, maybe on the device itself or on a nearby server. This decentralization could drastically reduce the energy needed just for data transmission, maybe by 70% to 90% for many AI applications.
Because moving data takes energy.
Moving massive amounts of data across networks takes a surprising amount of energy. Think about AI running on your phone for voice recognition or in your car for driver assistance. The computation happens right there, not miles away.
So lots of tech innovation on the AI side. What about the energy side? How are energy solutions and policies evolving to support this greener transition?
That's also moving fast. Significant investment and strategic planning are happening there too. Advances in renewables and energy storage are making clean power for AI more feasible and economically attractive every year.
Costs keep dropping.
Costs for solar panels, wind turbines, large-scale batteries, they continue to fall rapidly. That makes them increasingly competitive with, or even cheaper than, building new fossil fuel plants in many places.
And beyond solar, wind, batteries, other new tech.
Yes, other technologies are gaining traction. Green hydrogen produced using renewable electricity could play a role in energy storage or even direct power generation. And those advanced nuclear reactors, especially the small modular reactors, SMRs, offer another important pathway for reliable, carbon-free baseload power.
And policy is catching up. Governments are getting involved.
Increasingly, yes. The policy landscape is adapting. Governments around the world are developing new regulations and incentives specifically aimed at encouraging renewable energy use in data centers. Things like carbon pricing mechanisms, renewable energy standards, tax credits for green data centers. These create strong market signals, pushing companies towards cleaner energy.
So the outlook is hopeful.
The projection is quite ambitious, actually. Some forecasts suggest that by 2030, renewable energy could realistically provide 80% of the electricity for data centers in leading markets.
80%. That would be a huge leap from 28% now.
A very significant leap, yes, driven by cost, corporate commitments, and policy.
So it's not just about powering AI, but doing it smartly, sustainably. Which brings us to this idea of the circular economy in data center design. That sounds like a really holistic view.
It is. Applying circular economy principles is about looking at the whole system, maximizing resource efficiency, minimizing waste. A key part of this for data centers is reusing their waste heat.
The heat generated by all those servers.
Exactly. Instead of just venting all that heat into the atmosphere using energy-intensive cooling towers, the idea is to capture it and put it to good use.
Like what?
Like using it to heat nearby buildings through a district heating network, providing hot water for homes or businesses. Even using it for industrial processes like warming greenhouses for agriculture or fish farms, aquaculture.
So the data center becomes part of a local energy ecosystem.
Precisely. Some new data centers are being designed specifically to integrate with local district heating systems. It turns what was previously a costly waste product heat into a valuable energy service for the surrounding community.
Improving overall efficiency.
Significantly.
Yeah.
It improves the overall energy efficiency of the AI infrastructure itself, integrates it better into the community, and reduces both its direct energy footprint and its overall carbon emissions. It's a much smarter, more sustainable approach. Outro.
So wrapping this all up, what does it mean for us? This deep dive into AI's, well, unprecedented energy appetite really shows we're at a crossroads, doesn't it? We're navigating this future increasingly shaped by algorithms and data. And the IEA's analysis, backed up by everything we've discussed from the sources, seems crystal clear. The choices we make right now about how we build AI, how we power it, how we integrate it into our energy systems, these choices will profoundly shape not just our tech future, but our environmental future too.
Yeah, it's a really high-stakes moment, balancing that relentless drive for innovation with the absolute necessity of sustainability.
It absolutely highlights that critical balancing act, doesn't it? Between pushing technology forward and upholding our environmental responsibilities. While AI's energy demands are, well, undeniably huge and growing incredibly fast.
Which we can't ignore.
We can't ignore it. But its potential to actually help solve fundamental energy challenges, to optimize our entire energy systems, that potential is equally significant, maybe even more so in the long run.
It's true. Success in navigating this really complex, really critical relationship requires a massive coordinated effort. It needs collaboration between everyone involved.
The tech companies developing the AI.
The energy providers generating the power.
Policymakers setting the rules.
And the researchers constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in terms of efficiency. Everyone has to work together.
So investing in clean, robust, renewable energy infrastructure, developing more energy-sipping AI algorithms and hardware, rolling out those smart grid technologies, these are all absolutely essential pieces, aren't they?
They're all critical components for building a sustainable AI-powered future. The data, as you said, is clear. The challenges are serious and they're immediate. But as we've explored today, the potential for genuinely positive transformation for a more sustainable tech landscape, that potential is still firmly within our grasp.
If we choose to take it.
If we make the right choices, yes.
Which leaves us with a final thought, perhaps something for you, our listener, to chew on.
Yeah, this raises a really interesting question to ponder. Given this rapid growth of AI and its fascinating dual nature being both a huge energy problem and potentially a powerful solution, how might things change with the rise of truly decentralized AI?
You mean AI running less in giant data centers?
Exactly. Imagine a future where significant AI computation happens, not just in those massive centralized facilities, but increasingly on your personal devices, on local edge networks, on specialized hardware, closer to users. How might that fundamental shift alter this entire energy landscape over the next decade.
What impact would that decentralization have?
Yeah, what impact would it have on the overall energy demand for AI? And what would it mean for the stability, the planning, the whole architecture of our global electricity grids? It's a future that's still very much being written.
A powerful thought to mull over, absolutely. And it really highlights how dynamic this whole field is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has given you a valuable shortcut to being truly well-informed on this critical, fast-evolving topic.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.